Bolton, can we talk? It's 12:36 in the afternoon, such a beautiful, bright, sunshiny day, and that sunshine is enhanced indeed because live in the studio with us in person, we have Arsen Gulesserian, proprietor of thishouse.ca. We're talking all things real estate. You know, last night I went out with a buddy of mine and we had some chicken wings, and he's been working pretty hard over the course of the last couple of years and has saved up a sizable down payment. Now, he's never bought a house before, so that makes me think of a question that is probably on a lot of people's minds. They haven't bought a house before, they're ready to go with a sizable down payment. What's the process involved in using your services?
It's an excellent question, actually. The biggest thing that you need to do, as especially a first-time home buyer, you need to go to your bank and get pre-approved for a mortgage. This is so key. Any buyer that contacts me, right off the top, the first discussion is, have you been approved? And if you speak to many realtors, the very first question they'll ask you is, have you been approved? I know from a buyer's perspective saying that, oh, no problem, I make good money, I have good down payment, I should be approved. Well, it's a little bit of a complicated process to getting pre-approved from your bank. And actually, it's even an alternative is to contact a professional mortgage broker who shops for your lowest rate out there. And then there's additional, no two mortgages are the same. By having you pre-approved, first of all, you know what the banks are willing to lend you on that. You could also know that, okay, if the bank approves me to $400,000, you could work out based on the calculation, how much can you afford. I always tell people, if your budget is $400,000, don't push it to the $400,000, because buying a home can be an expensive process. There's moving costs, there's small renovation costs on that.
And you never know, you might have unexpected expenses. As an example, your furnace could go. Despite it passing the home inspection, you want to keep that little bit of extra safety net just in case it's a little bit more expensive. The other thing that comes to my mind too as you're talking, Arsen, is that if you're approved for $400,000, by keeping that cushion, you're well prepared for anything that unexpectedly happens. But you also asking, are you approved? You don't want to waste their time, and you certainly don't want to waste your time too. You get a clear indication of what they can afford, and you get a clear indication of what property to look for.
Exactly, and being pre-approved actually helps you save a lot of money in negotiation, especially in today's market. Over the course of the last 3 months, you've been in multiple offer situation. For you to even stand a chance of getting that property, you have to cross out the finance clause for you to get into multiple offer. That's only if in a multiple offer situation, then that's a major condition.
But even in general, if you're quite comfortable with removing a condition of this offer being conditional upon procuring financing, it shows that you're serious, and it shows that you are ready to acquire the property immediately. It's probably a good idea to leave the inspection clause on because you really want to make sure that the property's in good working order. But the financing is key. It shows that you're serious.
It shows you're serious. It shows you're prepared to buy. And truthfully, is when you do put an offer on the property on that, you have 5 banking days to get finalized, the banks firm it up. And if you haven't started the process before getting pre-approved, it takes a lot longer than 5 days. So you actually could lose you could lose that property by not being approved when you put the conditional offer on there. I do recommend for all people to put a condition of financing.
Whether they need it or not.
Whether they need it or not, because it is the greatest escape clause for you to get out of the deal for whatever the situation is. Home inspection, definitely. And home inspection is a little bit more difficult to get out of than you people think on that. But financing is the greatest escape clause for you, and there is no challenge to it. It's basically you say, I did not get approved, and the deal is done, you get your deposit back on that. With home inspection, there's could be always challenge. If something's wrong with the roof, the vendor could say, no problem, I'll get it fixed on that. So you always want to be protected, and that's why it is so important to work with a professional realtor to protect you. You are buying the most valuable asset in your life, and especially a first-time home buyer, you are scared, you don't know what's going, you don't know the process from beginning to end. A professional realtor guides you from beginning to end, even after you move in. They're there to answer all your questions on that, because it is a big step. We both have bought properties before, and if you could remember the very first time you bought,
it was terrifying.
It was terrifying.
My first kiss was much easier.
At least you got a first kiss. But truthfully, I remember my situation where I bought my first condo at a young age. The realtor didn't explain anything to me and just said, sign the paper, sign the paper. You know what? It's not about selling, it's about relationship, it's about caring, it's about helping people achieve their dreams. It really is. And when you're buying, you don't pay anything. The commission is paid by the seller on that. So a lot of buyers say, well, how much do I owe you? You don't owe us anything. We are paid when the deal is closed, and we're generally paid by the seller. There's a buyer agency agreement.
I want to ask you something about that. I've had people talk in many discussions. Real estate, as you know, is one of my favorite topics. And typically when you call on a for sale sign, you see a for sale sign outside a property, usually the first response out of the agent's mouth is, are you working with a realtor? Now I know the reason why that is, but for those of you who have not bought a house as of yet, why is the reason that that's the first words out of the realtor's mouth?
Because of the fact that if you're under a buyer agency agreement with a realtor, we as realtor, we cannot interfere with another client out there that's under agreement on a by law, so we'd be crossing it, so we cannot solicit them on that. And if they are working with a realtor, we also handle it a little slightly different. We're just there to provide information, and then if they're serious about looking at the property and they are working with a realtor under a buyer agency agreement, then we would suggest for them to contact their realtor to book in a showing to see the property themselves.
So you're not trying to be difficult, you're actually just trying to stay within the guidelines and actually legally obligated to not interfere if somebody's already working with a realtor. Because I guess the main response to people that are not familiar with how the buyer agency works, you're just calling on a for sale sign, but there are many consequences if they're already working with a realtor, if they're dealing with another realtor all of a sudden midway through their buyer agency agreement.
That's right. And again, when sellers sign up, they do a listing agreement and they are protected by the listing agent. When buyers sign up an agreement to buy with a buyer agency agreement, they are protected by the cooperating agent on that. Even myself, when I am protecting the seller, and if a buyer is not disclosing that information and they do have a buyer agency agreement, technically I could work with them, but if they bought a property and then the other agent could collect their 2.5% commission from that buyer.
And rightfully so if there's a buyer agency agreement already.
Listen, at the end, we're here to make money on that. A lot of people think that, you know, it's very easy as a agent representing a buyer. It takes a lot of time from beginning to end to drive them around, look at one or not just one property, sometimes 10, 15 properties on that, and it takes a long time. Sometimes you have multiple visits for that property, and sometimes you go into an offer presentation and then the deal doesn't go through. It's a long process, so anyone that is working for you under buyer agency agreement, they're there to protect you, to help you, and to guide you the right way on that. So it is very important under buyer agency agreement. The question I ask people for buyers is, who is protecting you, who is helping you, and that is so important.
It's a good idea too to have somebody in your corner too if you're negotiating to buy a property, to have somebody that represents your best interests, because then they take the role of negotiating for you. I'm in the studio live, Ron Badia, on Bolton's rendition of Can We Talk with Mr. Arsen Gulesserian, broker extraordinaire with Remax. Check out his website, thishouse.ca. And speaking of thishouse.ca, what I really like about your website is that not only do you showcase your services, which by the way are impeccable, but you also provide information, just simple information for somebody that's starting on the journey of buying a house. And it's not only a showcase for your services, as I say, but it's lots of information. And I like that because sometimes, and I'm not going to mention any names, the realtors are all about just getting the business, whereas you want to generously provide information just to help people in general. And if you can provide a professional service, you're more than willing to go.
Of course, information is the key in today's world on that. Buyers and sellers, a lot of them do the research before, and you're there to provide service on that. And there are some websites out there that try to hold back information. You are to provide, you know, email address and contact information for that. All my information is free, from a free CMA through buyer process, what it takes from selling, what helps to sell your property. And it's important. Listen, the public today is far more educated than I would say 10, 15 years in real estate. There's a lot of shows, there's a lot of internet. The technology has changed. You're dealing with professional people that know what they want and what they're going to do on that. And you cannot fool anybody in today's world.
We are live to air in the studio, CJFB-FM. We got a couple of questions that we got to get through, but for right now, we got a break for commercial. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with thishouse.ca.